Arenado drives one in the air. Deep right field. It's got a chance. Grand slam.
Way back it might be. It could be. Cubs win. Cubs win. Cubs win. Holy cow.
The Dingers podcast is on the air. I'm your host, Mitch. I'm here with Kevin and Jake. Cubs are playing it's a Tuesday night. We usually record on Monday. It's Tuesday. We're recording. Cubs are taking on the A's. Jake was at the game last night as the Cubs thumped the A's. So, and he got to meet Kerry Wood at Obvious Shirts. So that was pretty sweet. Give us a little bit of like what happened and why you were so excited to be able to see Kerry Wood.
Yeah, so I'll start by teasing it. I don't want to announce something on behalf of Joe, but he and I have been talking about a little bit of a collaboration for about a month or so now. And we were talking about launching it with this Kerry Wood autograph signing that happened yesterday, and just the logistics of things. It didn't work out, but keep an eye out. Joe will announce it on the Obvious Shirts, all their social channels, and then I'll announce it as well. But in those conversations, Joe was talking about this Kerry Wood signing, and for those that don't know, I have not met Kerry Wood, despite the being in the documentary, it being 26 years now since the 20K game. Haven't met him. I'm not one to typically go to autograph signings, and that's really there or CubsCon, and I've only been to one CubsCon. Those are the opportunities that people typically have to meet professional athletes, or something like Club 400, and just haven't gone. Not necessarily intentionally, but I did think it was kind of funny that people had assumed that I have met him a bunch of times and I hadn't met him. And I kind of thought, I was like, man, should I keep it that way? And just kind of have like a laugh about it when people are like, oh, like you must be pretty close with Kerry. It's like, no. But of course I went. I brought with me 4 of the original K signs, 2 to get autographed, and then 2 to give to Kerry. I think it totally makes sense for him to have a couple. Something that I've been thinking about basically since Joe presented a collaborative option. And we got a couple with the Cubs, 1 in the Hall of Fame, and now 2 with Kerry, because they wouldn't be anything like there wouldn't have been nearly as much fanfare, if any at all, around the K signs if it hadn't been for Kerry's performance in '98. So he was really gracious with his time. Super nice guy. I'm sure anybody listening that's met him would have the same feelings. Yeah, kind of surreal. I kind of blacked out a little bit. Like I told myself I wasn't going to get nervous, but you're waiting in line to meet someone and he's 10 feet away from me. And I'm just kind of like looking around this room, like trying not to make eye contact with him and like, waiting my turn. And then introduced myself and he's like, we got around to the point of him saying, yeah, I feel like I've met all of your family and friends except for you. So it was really cool. Shout out to Joe for helping make that happen. Got to see Obvious Shirts kind of behind the scenes, his operations. That guy is so busy. I'll say this, like when we were talking about when he first reached out to me, I got back to him as quickly as I could, and then I didn't hear from him, and I was like, I don't really want to push. He came to me, like he'll come back to me, and then days went by, and I was like, what's this guy doing, man? Like, are we doing this or not? And now I feel bad for ever doubting him because the dude has like over 10,000 emails in his inbox. And as we're sitting there talking in his, in the Obvious Shirts like back office, his phone's going off. he's got a photographer coming in, like, hey, are we, am I taking photos? So that guy runs obviously an operation that's beloved by a lot of fans, and he did a really cool thing helping me out and getting to meet Kerry and getting the signs to Kerry. So and helped me get a K shirt to Shota.
Awesome. Glad you got that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm hoping for a Sam Bernero pick of Shota walking into Wrigley wearing the K shirt. It's one of the new ones where I've got the reproduction or like the high res photo of the K on the shirt. But yeah, hopefully it gets to him. I mean, Joe.
Did you give him a swinging or a backwards K or a regular K?
No, it's a regular K. Remember,
mean, that's perfect for Shota because he was missing bats last night.
Oh man, and that so that's the funny thing too, right? Like I, signed from the universe, signed from my dad. That the day that I give Shota a K shirt, he strikes out his career high. Granted, it's only one season, but still 11 strikeouts is pretty damn good. So my buddy and I that I was at the game with, we looked up at each other in like the third inning. We're like, he's got 6 Ks already. So it was a great game. And then of course, as we were walking out, people were saying, "Wow, they dropped 9 tonight. Let's see them struggle to get 1 tomorrow." And here we are, 4-2 game with Sean Armstrong pitching. So that's what we're going to talk about today, right, boys? What the state of the Cubs season?
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be totally honest. I was like 2 weeks ago, like fully, almost like bought back in that like this team is going to make the playoffs, and then I don't know. I can't even like pinpoint when like the game was. I was like, it's not happening. Maybe
the
it
Yankee
was
series for me. The Yankees series for me
it might have been the Yankee series. Like it was fun, Rizzo back, but it was probably the Saturday, the second loss, and they hadn't scored two games, and you're like, okay, that's probably the nail in the coffin for this team, and you're like, it's the same story repeated from last year, where you go 2 months where you have a non-existent offense. So that was going to be one of my questions. What is worse, the Cubs offense during May and June or the Bears offense on Sunday?
Oh man, Kevin, do you want to take it first?
That's hard to make a distinction between them.
Well, it's funny because I don't really have a favorite NFL team, but both of you guys are Bears fans, so
I've got a lot of thoughts. You have to put me on the clock and cut me off if we're going to get into this.
Right. I think they both have the same problem. They can't score. I don't know. They're both ineffective, and I don't know. I think they're both offenses that we were fooled into believing in, and here we are with no points on the board.
So the distinction for me between the Cubs offense early this season and the Bears offense 2 games into the season is the Cubs had a veteran group of hitters for the most part. I mean, Michael Busch was really the only guy who wasn't a veteran at that point, and he was the one floating the offense, right? So
early.
You contrast that with the Bears and Caleb Williams and the horrendous offensive line. We're a Cubs podcast. We've all been hearing about the offensive line if you're listening to anything related to the Bears. So I won't belabor the point too much, but I think Caleb is going to be a stud. I really still think he's going. I mean, it's that opening drive on Sunday was. Ian and I were texting each other like, dude, I don't think we've ever seen a Bears quarterback look this composed and making passes like this. And I do think, despite the offensive line, there were some improvements, week to week. So I'm looking forward to Sunday against the Colts. I think the key is going to be to get the run game going. Going back to the Cubs, though, I mean, it's just like, I feel like it was not that long ago when we were talking about a season needing everybody to click. Like everybody, I mean, last season it kind of started to happen, and then the offense fell off. The whole team fell off in September, and we went into this season thinking, okay, if everybody plays up to their ceiling, we're going to look really good. And that's the problem that we've continued to hammer home this season. There are too many guys whose floors aren't high enough, and we've been counting on these guys to hit the ceiling all season long, and that's not realistic for any player. But you look at, like, you know, we go over and over again talking about how this lineup needs a star, like MVP caliber bat, because the floor for a bat like that, like a Bryce Harper, like a Corey Seager, whatever, is still a guy who's probably going to bat like 265, you know, with an OPS of like low 800s, 830 maybe, and that's a guy that can still carry an offense, and that's the floor. So, you know, it's been really tough to watch, because there have been guys, you know, we've seen performances from everybody else on the team. We've seen guys play well, but they don't have that guy with the high floor to keep the team afloat when the rest of the lineup fluctuates with a lower floor. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll kind of throw out and shout out Don Cubs. They did a thing, I think it was either yesterday or the day before on their podcast, where they talked about, in the losses that the Cubs have had this season, what the OPS of Happ, Bellinger, Swanson, all of them, like, went through their batting average, went through in the losses, and none of them performed well in losses, which that's why you didn't score runs. That's why you lost. But you look at, like, the Yankees, and Aaron Judge still has a high OPS, even in losses. Like, he's still being productive in the losses. He's putting up what he should be, where the Cubs, their best players in the losses are just like the low of the low. So, like, your point is perfect. Like, yes, the Cubs need that to be productive. And you've heard, like, pitching wins in the playoffs, and it does. It does. But name me a World Series champion that doesn't have one star offensively on their team. They had really good pitching on their team, but they all also have a star. Cubs in 2016, they had multiple stars. The Phillies, they have multiple stars on their team that wins them championships. Like, there has to be a star to be able to carry, especially in the playoffs, when sometimes you meet really good pitching and you go through a lull that you're going to struggle for a while. You need that star to, like, break you loose, like Chris Bryant did in the World Series. Like, his home run got us going again. Like, you need that star, and you need that star in the middle of the season sometimes to carry you when the rest of the offense isn't going. So, like, I'm there with you, Jake. Like, this team definitely does need a star. But you have to, like, take a little bit of step back for this year and be really happy with the production that we got out of center field and first base. Those have been kind of our question marks. And you saw both of our questions kind of get answered in those for going into next year, with the growth of PCA and center, and Michael Busch being, even though he went through a struggle in late August, he's kind of turned it back around now. Like, he has been a productive first baseman. I think he ranks as one of the top 3 or 4 offensively out of first basemen. Like, he's doing awesome. So, like, those two positions are kind of, like, checked off for next year, as, like, where do we go? Where can we get guy? Well, we have our guys, at least in those two spots.
Yeah, that's very true.
But where my question would be, where do we go in this lineup to improve the everyday position player? How do we improve? Who do we get? in what position do we need to improve on to be able to make this a productive lineup?
Ooh. The problem I see is so many of these positions are filled with players that we will have next year. Like, unless we trade or cut, which I don't see the Cubs wanting to cut because we keep playing small ball as a big market team.
Well, and the problem that
but-
we've already cut Trey Mancini. We're paying him this year $7 million. We cut Tucker Barnhart last year. We're paying him this year $3.5 million. We cut Brad Boxberger. We're paying him. We're still paying Jason Hayward's contract, $5 million to the Astros. We're still paying David Ross's contract for getting fired from the. We're still paying part of John Lester's contract that was backloaded. Like, we're still paying that now. Like, we have all these like contracts that aren't even guys that are like helping. So like, if we cut another guy, like, it just adds to that like total. And so
that's where like I'd like to see. I'll frame it this way. I've been disappointed by the output for Paredes at third base. That was when that trade.
I was going to go.
I will say,
look,
last 18 games, he's batting 300, an OBP of 436, a slug of 367. He's turned it on the last.
But it's the slug there.
You're right. The slug. The slug is super low.
Base. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the combo of him as that type of bat at third base and Nico as his type of bat at second base, it's too many low slugging hitters that have been kind of off and on all season. And I don't know, I really would like to. One of those, we've got to end up with a player who just smacks the ball out of the yard.
Would you,
and like you said, has a higher floor?
Would you say that, yes, like Paredes doesn't have the slug, but if you do trade Horner and put Shaw in at second, Shaw is a 2020 guy in the minors. Could he be the guy that adds a little?
Did he pause for you, Kevin?
Ruh-roh. Yep.
But you're still not getting the question answered of the star.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you fill in Shaw at second and keep Paredes, you still don't have the star that you need in the lineup.
Right. Yeah. And then the other position that I potentially see would be catcher, but I don't know that there's a star batting catcher that's going to catch in the way that this team has been built for on the defensive focus towards pitching. That's where I like Scott's answer is, just sell it all and upgrade at all positions in the comments, kind of, which isn't necessarily a bad idea, because maybe there is a trade out there that we get rid of. We move on from Horner and Paredes, and maybe an outfielder that's floor is a little too low.
Well, that's the problem too, is the best position player we have that has trade value is Seiya. And with them going to Japan to start the year, it almost handcuffs them. They're not going to want, they've already done all the promotion stuff with Seiya and Imanaga and playing the Dodgers. Like, they've already got that going. It's going to be really hard marketing wise to then go and trade, because they want that money from Japan that they're going to get. Like, and there's word on the street is that they've met with who's the next big pitcher that's coming across.
Roki Sasaki. Yeah, they scouted him. I don't know if there's been a meeting, but I know that Jed was it was reported that Jed was over there scouting.
So they don't want to trade Seiya, but really, like, he has the most probably value that could get something in return from a team.
But the thing there, though, is he's also been our best offensive bat all season.
Yeah.
So
I don't want it.
I was talking to my grandpa about it today, actually, and I said we were talking about how Seiya is like a really good number 3, maybe a solid number 2 bat on a team that has that impact bat that we've been talking about now for whatever 3 years that we thought Seiya could be. And I think that I don't know if he has another level. I mean, I'm looking at Fangraphs right now, and his season WRC plus is 134, which is pretty damn good. 201 ISO. K rate's a little high, but we always talk about the called strikes that he gets on him. Could you maybe that's the next level? Maybe that's the next level. And I know they're not going to implement the automatic balls and strikes between now and next season, but if they did, maybe that's what gets Seiya to the next level, is actually being able, like, getting the strike zone that he is reading correctly. Like, it's got to be so disorienting and frustrating to be at the plate and you read the pitch correctly, could have been in the pitcher's or in a hitter's count, but instead you're down 1-2 and now you're battling. So he's played really well despite that. I mean, the guy's got to have the most missed calls of anybody, but
yeah,
I mean, in not just on the Cubs, but in MLB, I'm sure it's tracked somewhere. If anybody knows, please let us know. But yeah, it's tough. There will be trades made. I think bringing Shaw up. I think Nico still has great value on the market too. I mean, he's finishing the season pretty strong here, offensively and defensively. And because we've got Shaw and then Triantos waiting in the wings, like, we've got depth at second base. Whether or not Nico is packaged with Paredes, I feel like those are two guys that are slightly bigger pieces that would be difficult to find a fit for. And I don't even know where you go. Like, when we're having this conversation, I'm looking at the WRC plus leaders at third base with a minimum of 50 plate appearances. And I've since switched something else, but I was looking at all the players and I was trying to find if there was anybody on that list that's on a team that's not competing this year. And the closest I got was maybe Jose Miranda on the Twins. And it's sort of intriguing because the Twins have a lot of they've got, oh my gosh, that's this stud rookie that has dealt with injuries. I can't think of the guy's name, but they've got a lot of options at third base. And Miranda has played well, but I don't think that's an upgrade. I don't think
that doesn't move the needle for me.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's not a star, which was the
the thing that's been floated around, and I think it's just because we're playing the A's right now, and he just struck out looking against Valencia. People are talking about trading for Brent Rooker. And it's like, yeah, he's been a stud the last 2 seasons, but he turns 30 in November. He's a DH primarily, and we've already got a logjam at outfield because he might be able to play a little bit of corner outfield in a pinch, but we've got a logjam there. That doesn't solve anything. Yes, he's got 3 years of control left, but I also I'm not sold yet. I mean, he had a really hot start to last season, made the All-Star team, fell off, wasn't playing well. I think he picked it up at the end of the season, and now he's balling out this season. But maybe he's like a Mitch Haniger type, like where he has a few peak seasons where he plays really well, and then the cost is going to be so high. The cost is going to be so high for a guy like that. And I was talking to somebody on Twitter, Corey Seacrest, I think it was. It just feels like that feels like a desperation move for Jed. It doesn't feel like. It feels like, oh, I got to get it back. So I'm going to overpay for this guy who just broke out at 29 years old.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, you look at this free agent class and you have Juan Soto, which that's not going to happen. And then you have Bregman. I don't want the Cubs anywhere near Bregman for third because you're going to way overpay for that. Like, and I don't think he's going to hit at Wrigley like he does in Houston. And so it's like, so besides that, it's pretty thin to get a really difference maker that really moves the needle on the offensive side. So it's going to have to be through trade. And so I
just I don't know what's out there. And the point that I made to Corey in these back and forth tweets was, so he had all these questions, will the prospect perform? Who else is out there besides Rooker? And then there was a third question. I said, the problem is that we're asking these questions at all. If Jed were doing a good job, these questions would have been, these questions wouldn't exist because the problems would have been figured out in previous off seasons. We would have made the signings that the Cubs needed to be competitive and complement these contract extensions that he's given out. And these guys that are about to be, these guys that are ready, like Owen Casey, if we lose this game tonight, which is 4-2 going to the bottom of the seventh, if we lose this game tonight, Owen Casey better be up tomorrow. He better start getting at bats tomorrow. And I know that our buddy Cody Del Mendo has been calling for that as well, but it's crazy, man. There's no reason for him not to be up.
I thought it was going to happen Monday.
Yeah, me too. With the homestand, it made sense.
Yeah.
I think, is today the last day of AAA?
Yeah.
I feel like I saw Alex Cohen tweet something.
So that's probably why they want him to finish the season out. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah,
whatever. What a stupid why. Who cares?
Yeah,
I know the 40 man is a problem too, but Mastroboni's still on the 40 man. When's the last time he's seen game? He's up, right?
Yeah, he got a bat. He got an at bat in the Dodgers.
Probably got one last night, and I missed it. I wasn't paying attention, but
you're partying because they're already up by a ton.
Yeah, it's tough because the way Hap has played this year, I don't want to see him get traded because he can play a very serviceable fourth bat in the lineup, not batting fourth, but a fourth good bat in the lineup to be able to a complementary piece if you have a star around him. He has played, he's kind of carried the offense, been the most consistent guy, I would say. After a slow start the first month and a half, he's been the most consistent hitter for the Cubs, probably the biggest run producer for the Cubs this year. And he plays a good outfield. So it's I like Hap out there. I like PCA. Dansby, really, when you look at the numbers, hasn't played that bad this season. It just, he played so bad early on. He's played a lot better. We just need to see. Last year he had a great start and a really bad finish. This year it's kind of flip flop. Next year, okay, Dansby, we're paying you a bunch of money. Put a total season together of consistency and be the guy that we need in the lineup. We're paying you a ton of money. You shouldn't be batting 8. You just shouldn't. The amount of money you're getting paid, you shouldn't be an 8-hole hitter for this lineup. But he's going to be there. Paredes, I don't know. You're right, Jake. We need more slug. And if that needs to be the position, we've test ran him for half a year, do you then try to flip him and turn him again and trade him and Nico? Put two of them together?
Tough to do, right?
Yeah.
Because he was already traded, and he was traded for Morel, who, after his first few games with Tampa Bay, I haven't heard anything that he's done.
Yeah.
So, just really quickly, going back to Ian Happ is 14th overall in WRC plus with a 124. Seiya is 7th with a 134. So it's not and Belly actually, for to his credit, 22nd, 113. I don't know. I can't remember if we've talked about this, and I know that it was talked about on the compound. At least I heard it was talked about on the compound. I didn't listen to the episode, but I think it was during the Dodgers series that the broadcast was talking about the home splits for Cubs players and how Wrigley hasn't been playing as hitter friendly this year. And I don't know all the details behind that, but it's like, we can't run it back exactly is what we're getting at here. There has to be some kind of change. And unfortunately, if Boob Nightingale's reports are correct and Bellinger does opt back in, the change is going to be from inside, like within the organization. Like, I don't necessarily know how that's going to work, but Owen Casey's going to get called up and players are going to shift around, but the roster is going to look basically the same otherwise. Man, do you know what I really wish that Michael Bush could just play third and we could put Belly at first base and Owen Casey DHs and Seiya takes a bunch of outfield clinics in the off season and
finds a guy that Ian Happ gets.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess I kind of lost track of my point, but could things play better if the wind conditions are different at Wrigley next year? Like, like how ridiculous is that is something that, has to be thought about. Now I'm going to take a deep dive into the Cubs home road splits.
I can't remember what Cubs podcast I was listening to. Maybe it was Cap talking. I was just checking out different Cubs podcasts this weekend. I usually don't listen to Dave Kaplan, but or I haven't listened to him in a while. And flip side, I think he was talking about that Wrigley Field has played really poorly offensively for both home and away teams. Even the other teams that have come in their runs haven't been put up enough in Wrigley Field. So that is interesting. And there was even a line that it's been trending down the last couple of years. And that's why players don't want to sign in Chicago because it doesn't play well offensively. It's since when did we get that? I haven't heard about that. So it's weird that now I've heard it from you too.
Thanks, climate change.
Yeah.
Changing the wind patterns in Wrigleyville or something like that.
So with that, do we have to go and improve this team pitching wise? And could we go out and get Corbin Burns?
Kevin, I want to hear your thoughts first.
I don't know. I always think of Corbin Burns and I think of him on the Brewers and I just want to punch walls and not be friendly to him. But at the same time, if you could have that guy on our team and with Craig Counsell again, maybe there's some magic to happen to continue. The name sounds nice. What's interesting to me is I don't know that our starting pitching has it feels like the bullpen the last couple of weeks has been full of, or all season had been full of players we were playing every so often as starting pitchers that were doing pretty well. But you bring in Corbin Burns, you pair him, you got Justin Steele and Shota, and you've got a big three-headed monster in that rotation. I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place.
I think the problem for me is that I feel like Corbin Burns is on the decline. And I'm worried about paying him right now. Again, it's another situation where it feels like it's a move. It'd be a desperation move from Jed trying to patch a hole that he created by not making the correct signings in the last few off seasons. And I agree, I do agree, Kevin, I'm not saying that he's not going to be a good pitcher. But I don't think that he's the ace that we saw with the Brewers anymore. Now, hey, maybe there's some Counsell magic there. Maybe you bring him in and there's a relationship there, that Counsell's able to get him back to that peak form. But how much do you have to pay him? And is he able to regain that, number one pitcher in Major League Baseball status? And I just don't.
I think you'd get I think you'd get 2 good years out of him, and then there'd be a sharp decline.
Yeah.
I could see that. And so then you're paying, because he's going to ask for like
A big contract.
5 years. I bet you he won't get. He's going to at least get a 5 to 7 year deal, or he's going to want that.
He's 29, so I could see an 8-year deal.
And so then you're paying, really, you're overpaying the
paid.
last 5 years of that contract, and you might get 2 or 3. So yeah.
What if he took a Shohei type of contract? He gets paid a whole bunch, and we just spread that thing out, or the guy at the Mets that they're still paying. We'll just spread that thing out, $500,000 a year until you die.
Because who cares about our kids watching the Cubs and them being good then? It's good now.
No, I mean, like
what's now.
Do that like with what Scott said in the comments. Sign Soto 10 years, $500 million. Yeah, defer that contract for 50 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
This is all I'm going to say about Juan Soto. I'm not going to entertain it at all. It's not going to happen. I bet he either stays in New York or he goes back to Washington. I think there have been a lot of really good arguments for why he should go back to Washington with that young team right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he's not coming to Chicago.
Yep. That's why I think he's either going to go one of those 2 places. So it stinks. But like I want so badly for Cubs to be the destination that every free agent wants to come to, and it hasn't been that way for, like, name the last time there was a huge significant free agent signing that signed with the Cubs.
I think it's like offensively, like I think you might have to go back to Alfonso Soriano. Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, who else?
Yeah.
Who else between then and now?
Offensively. Yeah, because even all the talk around Dansby was about the double plays up the middle with Nico. Like, it wasn't an offensive signing.
He was the
third.
He was arguably the 4th best
shortstop
on the board that offseason. Yeah. He's probably played better. I mean, I wouldn't really want Bogarts right now. Scott says Andre Dawson.
Andre Dawson, yep. Yeah. So I don't, like, we could talk about Corbin Burns, just because when you look at the log jam that we have, and if Bellinger opts in, it limits what we can do offensively. If you get a Corbin Burns, looking at just next year, it does help the team for next year. I think putting him in there, it takes like Wicks or whoever, that 5th guy, it pushes them maybe to the bullpen or whatever. You have a ton of guys coming back next year. Our bullpen has looked really solid to finish this year. And then you throw in Yancy Almonte that has been injured, Merriweather that actually is healthy. Like, I think even him coming off the injury wasn't totally back. You have, if either Ben Brown coming off injury moves to the bullpen, like it solidifies the bullpen even more so. And then if you get one more starting pitcher in there with the Corbin Burns, it would make the team better for next year.
Mm-hmm. Do you think? Go ahead. Sorry.
Like, I think that is a playoff team, but it's still not a World Series championship team. They could make the playoffs, but they're not going to make a run to win the World Series because they don't have the offense or the star that can carry them when there is solid pitching from the other side in the playoffs, which you will face. And you need that spark, or you need that guy that is going to be able to drive in the runs, like Chris Bryant in the World Series. I brought up that, like, when you're struggling offensively, to break us loose, like, you need that.
And I want to, like, I think this is a good time to highlight Darren's comment. One thing to ponder if we had a quality closer from day one this year, the Cubs are holding a playoff spot, and that's true. I think that's 100% true. I think not only I don't know how many blown saves the Cubs have this season. It's a lot. It feels like a lot, but that's not necessarily saying that if all of those blown saves convert to wins, which let's say 75% of those blown saves convert to wins. I don't know what the number is off the top of my head, but that gets you more wins, more games in the win column. But on top of that, how demoralizing is it to continue to blow saves? What does that do to the morale in the clubhouse and how a team is able to rebound from that? Because there's a mental aspect there too in the grind of a 162 game season. So I think it's a great point, Darren, one that's been talked about in Cubs podcasts, blogs all season long. So my question to you guys, do you guys think that Porter Hodge has what it takes to be the opening day closer for a playoff contending team next year?
I like Porter Hodge's stuff a lot. He showed me a lot the last 2 months. When he first came up, I had some question marks because he didn't have the consistency of throwing strikes, and he improved really, really fast. He started throwing a lot more strikes. But like, I hate putting it on this, but like the one game against, was it the Dodgers where he had like the heart, like he had to like pause and come off the mound, and like just the anxiousness of that moment got to him. And I don't know if it was a health condition. I don't know. And if it's that, like, that sucks. But like, you need a guy in the ninth inning to be nails, like where like nothing will rattle him. Like, because that moment is very, very small compared to pitching game 7, ninth inning, winning run on second base or tying run on second base, and to close the door. Like, that's different. And if he can't handle that moment.
Do you want to hear my theory? I don't know. I'm sure it's been put out there, and I just missed it. What happened to Hodge that night? But I follow Tread Athletics, great follow on Twitter. My wife and I, we happen to know the owner. Really good guy, Ben Brewster, but he had a video, I believe, that he was talking about really quick. Scott says 24 blown saves, most in MLB, compared to 59 quality starts, the 11th most in MLB. So the starters have done their job, which we've known all season. It's the bullpen that's and the bullpen has bounced back. But to finish my thought on Porter Hodge, I think it was Fred Athletics that posted it that talked about in a video guys like pounding energy drinks before they go into the game, or like while they're warming up. And I think the three of us have all taken pre-workout or a little bit too much pre-workout before.
That might be.
And if he does have an underlying anxiety thing or a heart condition that we don't know about, and maybe that's not out there, he doesn't have to, divulge that information with anybody. But if he does have that, and he had a little bit too much caffeine, and it's a night game when it's, in a new time zone that you're adjusting to, all of these factors, and it's Dodgers game, he's a 23-year-old rookie. It's like, I want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt because he came back out there, and despite it taking a miraculous home run robbery by Pete Crow Armstrong, he did finish off the game. So I think my thing is, like, if we're not going to make a trade for a closer, which I don't even know who would be out there, like maybe the Giants are willing to, like, they've had some issues with Camilo Doval. Maybe they're willing to move Camilo Doval. But even he's been a little erratic this year. He got sent down to AAA after blowing some saves. So there's no guarantee out there. But could you imagine if we have a guy with like 7 years of team control, a 23-year-old potential stud closer whose underlying numbers look really good and he's had a year to learn how to face major league hitting, and he comes back next year after working on any of his deficits over the offseason, like, I don't know if I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit too much, but I could totally see him being the guy, and that would be an incredible find for the Cubs. Meaning Hodge, not Doval.
Yeah, I mean, and then
Well-
you are getting Alzolay back too. Like that puts
Yep.
if he comes in to like anything close to what he used to be, get him in the 8th or 7th. Like, yeah, I mean, I have stuff wise, Hodge looks amazing. Like Hodge has the stuff to be a 9th inning guy and get guys out. Like he's proven it. And like, I didn't think about that, like the pre-workout or like, yeah, that could have totally been it.
Totally
I've
off,
been there. I've been there. Like I've taken it.
Dude,
Like,
you're just three sets into your workout, and you're like, I'm gonna fucking die.
you know,
Heart's
your
gonna-
heart-
I need
your
to
heart-
take a knee right now.
I always struggle with going out and signing a big closer too, because the closer role in general is just so turbulent. Like anybody can
Unpredictable.
have it
There
and
are
then you
very
can lose
few-
it.
Yep. That's a great
And,
point, Kevin.
yeah, I mean, it would be nice because if you go and get a big name star, that's a good name to throw on the on all the marketing for next season. But at the same time, I don't know that it often pays off. I don't know.
I'm just watching.
Scott. Thank you, Scott C. Yeah, it's true. We don't believe you, Mitch. Your legs are too small.
Well, Scott also put up the Iowa just tweeted out on Casey stealing a home run. So I was watching that when it happened. And Scott, I could out squat you any day. But yeah, like that. These are all like questions that we have going in. We have a long off season to be able to talk about all these things, which stinks. Like it's another year that the Cubs don't make the playoffs, and like doing this podcast now for how long we've done it, 4 or 5 years, like, and we've only had a 2020 season that we got out some playoff games, and that I don't even really count, like, because it was short and it was weird, like, and so like, and it was 2 games and they were out, like, so I just want to be able to have this podcast going when the Cubs are in the playoffs and be able to talk playoff baseball. Like I do, like I want that. And part of me, it's really hard for me, like, to get excited about next year, knowing that it's just going to be run back the same team for the 2nd year in a row. And it's like, how are you going to sell tickets like that? Like
I'm telling you right now, my season ticket first payment is due, I think, October 15th. And I'm not like, sorry, Mike, if you're listening, and I haven't talked to you about this yet, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. Like, I mean, just from a financial standpoint, like I lost money on season tickets this year, like not an insignificant amount. There were games that my tickets, I just wasn't able to sell them. Bleacher ticket. There was like a Friday 120 game that I think I wasn't able to sell the tickets for. It's like, if you can't sell, or I took a huge loss on the tickets. If you can't sell out a Friday 120 home game in the middle of the summer, and I'm not asking for a pity party. I'm just using it as a barometer. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yep. So
It's true. We got to get back to. Oh,
well, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I was gonna say we got to get back to the playoffs because we also need to have some Jeff and his lasagna on the podcast, going through all that. He's gonna have some stomach issues. We gotta talk him through. You know, we need that as a community.
So like you talk about like Jake, like I've had this conversation with my kids, who want me, like my son wants me to buy him the new Hype Fire bat. It's like $500. Like those things they're hot. They're like you're gonna hit some bombs with it. But I told him this, like, it's like, okay, Cannon, you want this bat, and I'm willing to invest in you, but I want to see you invest in yourself by you going out and putting in the work yourself without me having to ask you to go to hit extra or go field. Like if you're investing in yourself, I will totally invest in you. I will put money into you. I'll buy you the nicest glove. I'll buy you the nicest bat. I will put you on whatever team. Like I will. But if I don't see it, then it's really hard for me to invest. That's the same with the Cubs.
It's a great analogy.
If they're willing to invest in their team to make it worth me then turning around and invest. Yeah, I'm willing to invest back in the Cubs. I'm willing to go to games. I'm willing to do that. Like, because I want to see them do well. But it's really like this year, like it was hard for me to want to invest in my time and driving to Chicago and know I'm going to be spending over a good chunk of money while I'm there to watch a product that I don't feel like they invested in to get me to go. Like it's
yeah. I feel that, Mitch. So I think split 3 ways. I get 27 tickets or 27 games worth of tickets. I went, and I had life going on, and I live a 2.5, 3 hour drive from Wrigley. So like you said, it's not easy for me to get there. I think I went to 4 games this season. I'm going to another one on Saturday, but of 27 games that I have tickets to, and part of that is just because they weren't doing enough for me to feel like I had to be there and like couldn't miss a game. There just wasn't enough going on. I mean, I'm excited that last night I got to see Seiya's, potentially best start of his career last night. That was awesome. Some great defensive plays up the middle from Nico and Dansby, an offensive onslaught, future Cub Brent Rooker hitting a home run. But no, man, I mean, I totally hear you. It's not. And then, just when you get there, I can't even imagine you guys going with kids, having to pay for a family at these games. It just is so prohibitive. And I love that comparison you make to Cannon investing in himself. Let's clip that and send it to Ricketts.
Yeah. And I'm willing to invest. I'm willing to invest in you, Ricketts. I'm willing to pay the money and go to a game, go to quite a few games if there was a good product. Like, and that's the tough thing. Like, they put the worst product on the field in the summer months that people are willing to take vacation time and go and watch your team. And your team sucked for the middle of the summer when you could have had that place packed out. And it's like, I would have gone, but your team was like, I didn't even want to watch them on TV, let alone drive 3 hours and pay a whole bunch of money to go watch them. I'm not going to do it. So,
and you know what, to wrap up this thought, do you know who deserves better? Hall of Famer Pat Hughes.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I know we got a World Series for him, but I love listening to Pat and Ron. And in those rough stretches in the middle of the summer, you could hear the pain in Pat's voice.
Yeah.
And I can't, as a Cubs fan, if you're hurting Pat Hughes, you're really hurting me. And I can't take that. So do it for Pat. As Scott says, the fake rally is over.
All right. Well, that does it for episode 167 of the Dingers podcast. Appreciate everybody in the comments. They're awesome. Shout out Omar, Darren, Scott, as always. Love your comments. So thanks everybody for in there. It's fun to do podcasts when people are going off in the comments. So, but yeah, this is probably it. We'll do one more wrap up before the season because it's what we have 12 games left. So we'll have the end of the season podcasts and then a whole bunch of winter podcasts to look forward to. But thanks for listening. the Dingers podcast. Make sure you're going and checking out On Tap Sports Network, as well as giving the guys at Cubs on Tap a shout out because they're awesome over there. So thanks for listening, and go Cubs.